Oh Lord, boys, it's freaking cold, bro. I don't know what's going on. Temperature drop, it's about, I don't know, 38 40 degrees today, boys. It's cold. Hey, go grab your hoodie, boys. gooseperformance.com, because it is chilly, boys. Guys, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. Yeah, back on the Chevelle today. We're gonna continue on with the process of just getting it prepped up, right? You guys remember on the last video, went ahead and prepped the engine bay for the most part. At least I should say gut the engine bay. But we got to continue on the back side of this, because you guys can see we still got that old AC unit in there as well, along with wiring and things like that. So we got to go ahead and pull the car up a little bit so we can open the doors, and then we can actually get the dash out. We got to start pulling the dash off. We got to drop the steering column a bit and get everything ripped out of there so we can rewire that whole thing with new digital gauges. AC, we got to do the AC box as well. We got to smooth out the firewall. We got a laundry list, boys, a lot of stuff to do, so we might as well go ahead and get started. All right, boys, so if you guys are doing a Chevelle by chance, if this is for you guys to do your own Chevelle, now first things you want to do is, actually before you do anything, is you're going to go underneath here, boys. You guys remember the plug that we disconnected from the firewall side, I should say engine bay side? You're going to do the same thing over here, which is basically you're disconnecting the main fuse block, guys. You're going to disconnect that. You're going to have two bolts, one up top, one down low, or I should say caddy corner to that. It should be, I want to say it's an 8mm bolt. There's two of them, maybe even a 7. But then you're also going to have a few plugs that connect back to the high beam switch there. You're going to have a plug there. You're going to have a plug also that connect back to the back of the harness that goes to the back of the car, which runs this way. You're going to disconnect that as well. Obviously there's going to be a few others that you're going to run into, but this one looks like it has some aftermarket accessories, so I'm not sure what we're going to find or not. But then after you guys do that, boys, you're going to want to take the dash pad out, boys. Take the dash pad out. This one, they just have a bunch of screws under here that right under here. Disconnect those, or undo those, I should say. This will pop right out. And then we're going to move on with the steering column, boys. The steering column, we're going to drop the steering column. You should have two bolts right around in here, I should say, like nuts to hold that. You got to take this out though, but we're just going to drop it. We're not going to completely remove out. We're just going to drop it and leave it here and then work around it. So you're going to do that as well. You have to open up this glove box as well, boys, to undo the screws that are in here for the dash. A lot of little stuff, so you're going to run into a bunch of stuff. Like I said, all the AC stuff, boys, all the like old vacuum lines that come off the AC unit in the box, you can cut those, get rid of them, or if you really want to keep them, you can try to save them and sell them. Totally up to you guys, but we're going to go ahead and start with that and get that going. Not to mention, boys, we're going to actually probably go ahead and remove these A-pillars as well, because these A-pillars kind of hold that lower dash in place. So you can pop these out. They should just have one screw here, one screw down there, along with that one there. So let's get to it. Oh Lord, boys, it is freaking freezing. Let me tell you guys, I totally forgot to mention kick panels. You got to remove these kick panels along with the seal plate on the door, so we can get to a lot of the wiring and things like that. Obviously all the connectors, not to mention all the connectors that are coming off the steering column, boys. You're gonna have to remove those, because that's the last thing we want to do, is drop the steering column and there'd be a bunch of wires holding that up. Not to mention, boys, this thing has some kind of crazy radio slash alarm system. We're gonna get rid of all that, and it is not helping, because all that stuff was ran underneath the column. So we're having to cut a lot of it out of the way, because we're not gonna run it. And not only that, it was giving the car starting issues, not to mention that. So we're gonna get rid of all that. So be wary, boys, when you guys are dropping these steering columns. Look what's underneath. See what you can and can't use. If you're not gonna use it, or it's bad, just cut it out of the way, get it out of the way, And then the radio stuff, I noticed that all the RCAs and stuff like that were ran along the bottom side of that column as well, keeping us from dropping it. But I didn't want to cut those, so be wary of those, because we're gonna need those ends, so we can't just re-put new ends on that. So I ended up disconnecting that stuff from the radio. But we're gonna go ahead now. Oh, another thing is that parking release here, the handle, you got to remove that. It's just one little clip. So now I think we got pretty much everything out of the way here for the most part. We're gonna go ahead and remove the 2 bolts that hold, or the nuts that hold the column up, and drop it and see what else is left. And then we'll end up having to disconnect, cut a bunch of other stuff once we get the dash dropped, and see what we got. Oh Lord, boys, I'm telling you, this is definitely one of the worst ones I've seen in a bit. But at least wire management and install. This obviously, this is a new dash, boys. This thing was installed at one point here and not very good, but you guys can see what we're dealing with. Looks like it has an old, very old set of Dakota digital gauges, and look how they just kind of threw the box here, and it's just sitting right on top of everything. It's kind of silly. It's kind of crazy how they did this. We're just gonna start cutting, boys, and try to get all this stuff out of here, because it's just poorly installed either way. You got a bunch of zip ties just kind of trying to hold stuff together, not to mention all the old AC stuff here. This is the stuff I was talking about, boys. Like anything with the connector, obviously, that has the easy quick connects, you can take those off. All the factory stuff, you can remove all that stuff and get it out of here. As far as the vacuum ones though, boys, look, a lot of them are already busted up and corroded. You guys can just cut those out of the way. I would not worry about that stuff. Honestly, this stuff is junk. You won't ever use it again. If somebody does try to use these again, I don't know what's wrong with you. Go get some vintage air kit and be done with it, boys. We're just gonna start cutting all these out of the way so we can pull this dash completely out of here, because this stuff right here is garbage. One other thing real quick, boys, I want to mention that you will need and you don't want to cut is that bad boy right there. You see that? That's your door jamb switch. The door jamb switch is actually part of the actual stock harness. Make sure you guys don't cut that bad boy right there. You're going to want to hold on to that so you can rework it back into the dash harness. You guys ever heard of the expression, it's got to get worse before it gets better, boys? This is the definition of that. This thing, whew, that was bad, boys. We still got a lot of work to do still. Well, you guys can see this is kind of what we're left with once you take the dash out, with all the old AC box, AC evat box, heater core, and everything else like that. Not to mention these old vacuum pods that are all going to come out. This whole thing's got to come out for the vintage air. That guy's going to come out. We're just going to undo. There's a bunch of bolts up top you got to undo throughout this thing. Don't be afraid to just rip some of this stuff out, man. This thing is all trash here. Look, this is that harness from the other side. You're not going to use, you're not going to need. All that stuff can go. What else here? We got to get underneath here, undo the bolts from underneath there to get all this stuff out. But let me show you the dash. Now, mind you guys, somebody did this recently, like recently, probably within the last couple years, right? This is a brand new dash, new digital gauges. I would say maybe probably 8 years old now. Actually, probably, huh? Those gauges are definitely older. But you guys can see it is a freaking rat's nest, boys. This thing, honestly, this is my biggest pet peeve, man, when it comes to building cars, working on somebody else's cars, that you do stuff like this, you do stuff like just all these wires just exposed with no electrical tape, nothing, no insulation, and you're gonna burn somebody down, man. You don't want to do that. Somebody themselves and their family is gonna be riding in this car, right? The last thing you want to do is anything catch fire behind this dash. Not to mention, oh man, the car heaving too, huh? But one other thing I forgot to mention, boys, was that this little connector right here. That's going to be off your brake pedal switch. That's basically tells your your parking brakes. That'll basically tells the light to come on and say, hey, your parking brake is on. So don't forget about that. Be wary of that guy because it's very short. You can definitely mess it up pulling it out. But you guys can see this is probably going to be the biggest challenge of this entire build, boys, is dealing with this monstrosity here. I don't know how much of this harness is already cut up and how much we can save of it. We'll see. I'm gonna have to kind of pull it apart and see if we can save this dash harness. If not, we might have to get a new one. As a matter of fact, boy, let's just hit you with a little YouTube magic. Boom, there it is, boys. Yes, sir. We got everything pretty much cleaned up, out of the way. Got that old AC box out of the way, guys. Like I said, you just remove those bolts because you already did the backside. It should come right out, no problem. And then we also had and got rid of that old AC vent there that was there. We got to go ahead and just do a little bit of prep here, do a little cleanup, remove all this old stuff right here, so that way we can pass our new AC lines through there. They're going to come through here from the vintage air kit. We're going to pass them through this side here. But let me show you guys the back side of this here. So you can see what it looks like now without all that old AC stuff there. Now, on the next episode, boys, stick around. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. On the next episode, we're going to go ahead and get this all cleaned up. So we got to take this down, get it cleaned up, grab a hammer, and start banging away. Not to mention, boys, we're going to use our delete block-off plate from GP Performance, I should say. Goose Performance, I should say, guys. If you guys don't know about that, go check down my website, gooseperformance.com. Boys, I offer this delete plate that'll clean it up there with the bead roll, everything, so it'll look real good. But you guys, I think that's gonna do it for the video, boys. It's freaking cold out here. My hands are freaking frozen, man. So freaking cold out today. But hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and hit the bell for notifications. And you guys already know, stay wrenching.